Question number 9, in the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan.
Minister, there has been a long association, a long tradition with the FCA in this country. So I am just wondering, what is the role of the FCA currently, and the number of staff that are there, and the resources that are going into them today?
Minister.
As the Deputy may know, a value-for-money review of the Reserve Defence Force was completed and published in November 2012. It recommended the retention of an Army Reserve, previously but no longer known as the FCA, and a Naval Service Reserve, previously known as An Slua Mhuire, with a combined strength of approximately 4,000 personnel and a range of other reforms which together will ensure a viable and cost-effective reserve into the future. A new organisational structure for the Army Reserve and Naval Service Reserve came into effect at the end of March last, and a large number of under-strength units have been consolidated into a smaller number of full-strength units. In addition, the way the reserve units are organised has fundamentally changed. Under the new structure, Army units within the Defence Forces have both Permanent Defence Force and Reserve Defence Force components, as opposed to the separate parallel structures that previously existed. This revised structure has improved access to equipment, expertise and to appropriate training for members of the Reserve. It has allowed for a significant reduction in the number of Permanent Defence Force personnel required to administer and train the Reserve on a full-time basis. The Army Reserve now has an establishment of 3,869 personnel, the Naval Service Reserve establishment of 200 personnel. Key issue identified in the Value for Money review is the high number of reservists that were not meeting minimum levels of paid and unpaid training, but which were retained on the strength of units. The attainment of required levels of training is an essential requirement. Now, I've ensured that there is sufficient paid training to provide a minimum 7 days paid training for all reservists and to sustain recruitment to the Reserve. In this context, the budget available for paid training for members of the Reserve is €3.243 million in 2013. The number of paid training man-days available to members of the Reserve has increased from the 30,000 in 2012 to 41,500 in 2013. Recruitment to and promotions within the Reserve will be in line with the number of vacancies that arise. A key requirement is to ensure that reservists who are no longer active do not block appointments within the new organisation. This is a critical factor in ensuring the vitality of units. It's currently being addressed as part of the implementation process. Ultimately, the recommendations of the VFM review that are being implemented are intended to enhance the overall capacity of the Defence Forces to deal with a broad range of contingencies. I am determined as Minister that the current reforms are given every opportunity to succeed, and I would like to convey my appreciation to the many deeply committed members of the Reserve Defence Force and Permanent Defence Force who are at the sharp end of the current reforms and who will ultimately deliver the enhanced capabilities that are so important.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Minister. I know any change obviously brings about, a certain amount of confusion and upset, and it, I suppose, depends on the individual's ability to cope with change. So, I know I do know people who have been in the FCA for quite a considerable length of time, probably most of their adult lives. So, my question really is in relation to their current role, and was there the extent of the consultation that would have gone on with them, because they are the people who would have been experiencing the change. It's okay for people who are coming in now new into the FCA because they're coming into a new system, but it's for those people who have given maybe 20, 30, even longer years service as to how they feel and the extent of their engagement in the new process.
The changes that were introduced were of crucial importance. One of the difficulties with the Reserve is that a significant number are members of the Reserve, but they're not participating in paid training days. And it's very important that we have a Reserve that is fit for purpose, that can engage and engage with and assist the Permanent Defence Forces when required. And the new reforms that we've introduced are designed for a more integrated approach as between the Reserve and the Defence Forces. As I previously said, I very much appreciate the contribution made by the very many members of the Reserve who have been engaged with it for so many years. The decisions in relation to implementation of the changes have been made. There has been an engagement with members of the Reserve, and I'm advised that matters are developing very well. But I do remain concerned that we have numbers of individuals in the reserve who in the past made their contribution but who are no longer active. And I am anxious that in the context of the reserve that we recruit some new young people who have the energy to make a contribution, who would like to make that contribution, and that those who are still members but who no longer are able to engage, make the contribution or participate in training days, consider how to best approach matters to ensure the reserve is as effective as possible.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
Yeah, just go back to those who are no longer active and just ask the Minister if he could outline any particular role that he could see that they could play in the future of the FCA, perhaps in a mentoring scheme with younger people coming in, because there's still a very strong loyalty to the FCA among that particular group.
Sorry, Deputy McLaughlin, a very quick.
Minister does. It's the official title is the Reserve Defence Forces, not the FCA anymore, as I understand it. Has it changed?
Thank you.
Is it the Reserve Defence Forces or the FCA's actual title now? It's the Reserve Defence Forces.
Yeah.
Okay.
The actual title is.
The reason why I asked that is that the Reserve Defence Forces Representative Association, as you know, Minister, presented to our Justice, Equality and Defence Committee about their concerns. They, I think, very expertly dealt with the issues that led to the depletion of it, and they're looking to meet. So, have you met with them since the changes have taken place? Have you listened to your concerns, and will you act on them?
Minister.
I haven't recently met with them. I met with them in or about the time of that meeting. I'm always happy to meet with them. It's never an issue. I'm not aware of an outstanding request for a meeting. If they wish to meet with me, I'm happy to do so. Coming back to Deputy O'Sullivan's question, of course, members of both the Reserve and the Defence Forces, when they retire, often maintain an interest in the Defence Forces. There are associations of which they're members. They very actively contribute in different ways, often with very constructive suggestions and proposals. Indeed, some of the retired members of the Defence Forces and their groupings are included in the numbers who've made submissions on the Defence Force White Paper, and their knowledge and their capacity to contribute is very much appreciated and is given very careful consideration when constructive proposals are made.
Thank you.